Thank you, Anju. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to ICRA's webinar on the Indian corporate non-financial sector. I have with me ICRA's Deputy Chief Rating Officer, Mr. K. Ravichandran, my colleague and co-group head for corporate ratings, Mr. Srikumar Krishnamurthy, and the authors of our note, Mr. Rohan Gupta and Ms. Shruti Thomas. The fiscal 2021 was a year of two unique halves. While quarter one was a complete washout because of lockdown and related disruptions, the economic activity started to limp back to normalcy from second quarter before gaining momentum in both the third quarter as well as the fourth quarter. Barring few sectors such as travel and tourism, most sectors of the economy reverted back to pre-COVID levels, aided by pent-up demand, supported rural economy, as well as government's timely interventions. However, just as the corporate India was preparing itself for a year of stability, the second wave of COVID-19 struck us. Although the social and emotional impact of the pandemic has been much more severe this time, but we feel that the economic impact is going to be less severe. The key question now on everybody's mind is, will there be a third wave? And how long will it take for the economy to stabilize? In ICRA's view, the situation continues to remain evolving and depends largely on the pace of vaccination and many other economic factors such as inflation and its impact on corporate earnings. Government support and strong financial markets driven by healthy liquidity also remain critical. In this backdrop, let me handle the presentation to Ms. Shruti Thomas to share our views. Over to you, Shruti.
Sure. Thank you, Shamsher. Good day, everyone, and welcome to ICRA's webinar on the Indian corporate sector. Today's presentation will give a brief overview of corporate India's performance in Q4 FY21, wherein we continue to see healthy recovery trends, followed by the trends seen in some high-frequency indicators subsequently as the second wave of the pandemic rampaged through the country. This will be followed by our comments on the impact of the second wave on certain key sectors, along with our outlook. In this section, we will briefly touch upon the financial performance of corporate India in Q4 FY21. Recovering from the troughs of the pandemic and supported by the favorable base of the previous year, which had lost 10 days to the nationwide lockdown, corporate India reported healthy growth in Q4 FY21, both sequentially and year-on-year. Also, what was heartening to note was that the growth was broad-based, with majority of the sectors, as you can see, witnessing a year-on-year and sequential uptick. Consumer-oriented and commodity-linked sectors led the year-on-year growth at 30% plus each. Growth in consumer-oriented sectors was supported by the general economic revival and the low base of the previous year, when the pandemic-related fears had started crippling the consumption trends. Commodity-oriented sectors, on the other hand, drew momentum from both firm prices as well as pickup in volumes. Additionally, sectors like IT, telecom, and construction contributed to growth. Select sectors like hotels and airlines were the few outliers with a year-on-year revenue contraction. India Inc.'s profitability also reported an impressive bounce back since Q2 FY21 on the back of strict cost control initiatives and improving scale of operations. Following the pandemic-induced disruptions to operations from March 2020 onwards, many entities aggressively rationalized costs through salary cuts, downsizing of workforce, renegotiation of rentals and interest rates, curtailment of overheads, etc., to survive the challenging period. The benefits of all these measures percolated into subsequent quarters also, which, coupled with sequential recovery in demand and revenues, contributed to a significant recovery in margins. As you can see here, only select sectors such as hotels with high fixed costs and logistics with increasing fuel costs witness year-on-year pressure on margins. However, with most costs gradually reverting to pre-COVID levels, commodity inflation headwinds, and pressures over the near term due to the second wave of the pandemic, margins are expected to have moderated in the current quarter. With the demand revival and corresponding strengthening of earnings, the credit metrics also improved in Q4 FY21. Additionally, interest costs also decreased on a YOY basis, with benefits of a lower interest rate regime and curtailed capex or working capital spend. Accordingly, interest cover improved appreciably during the period. In Q1 FY22, with the second wave of the pandemic again bringing about challenges in terms of lockdowns, consumer confidence erosion, etc., and no blanket relief such as the moratorium announced last year, corporate India's debt servicing capabilities would have weakened. This would be especially true for heavily impacted sectors such as hotels, aviation, retail, etc. In this section, we will showcase some of the trends subsequent to the stellar Q4 FY21 performance, wherein the second wave of the pandemic derailed the recovery. This is a graph all of us are unfortunately all too familiar with. The second wave of the pandemic saw infections in the country increasing exponentially over April and May, peaking at more than 4 times of the previous wave, and India emerging as the worst impacted country globally, with highest number of daily infections. While the situation has improved over the past couple of weeks, concerns of possible and deadlier third wave continue to play on the minds of the people. In this context, vaccination remains the only sustainable solution to control the pandemic, and as such, pickup in the pace of the vaccination drive remains critical. However, while the entire population, except for children below 18 years, has progressively been brought under the ambit of the world's largest vaccination drive, the ramp-up has been slow due to supply constraints. As per latest data, only 17% of the population has been administered with at least one dose of the vaccine, while the population of fully vaccinated people would be much lower. Although the second wave did not see imposition of a nationwide lockdown like last year, the regional restrictions imposed by various states starting from April 21 and intensifying in May 21 had led to almost the entire country being under lockdown during the major part of May. However, the situation has progressively eased over the past couple of weeks, with a large part of the country opening up gradually, except for the southern states, which are seeing delayed recovery. In line with the restrictions over the major part of the country and the increased wariness, the mobility trends in the country, especially to public spaces, showed a steady dip over April and May. However, this has gradually started improving again now, especially for essential services like grocery and pharma, while discretionary movement such as for retail and recreation continues to be limited. The second wave in the country also saw increased spread into the rural hinterlands, unlike the first wave, where the impact had been largely concentrated in urban clusters. Accordingly, concerns abound that the rural economy may not be able to carry the mantle of economic recovery this time around. The current sentiment index, which had bottomed in September 2020, showed sequential recovery subsequently as the macroeconomic scenario improved. However, with the rampage of the second wave, both current and future expectations indices sequentially weakened, with the sentiment becoming weaker than even the last year. Other factors influencing the consumer sentiment, such as unemployment rate, also reported sequential worsening as the restrictions started getting imposed, resulting in some degree of labor migration again. This has raised further concerns on income stability and dampened consumer purchasing power and sentiment. Given the rapid spread of the pandemic, many of the high-frequency indicators witnessed sequential weakening in April 21. However, while there was sequential weakening visible due to the lockdowns and restrictions, the extent was definitely lower than that was experienced last year due to the nationwide lockdown. Electricity and diesel demand have been least impacted, as industrial activity continued largely unfettered, while other sectors saw varying degrees of impact. In contrast, if you see, the month of May 21 saw further sequential weakening across sectors, as against the month-on-month recovery trends that had been seen in May last year. And hence, the impact in May this year has been much more pronounced vis-a-vis last year. Most of the indicators, which had seen recovery to pre-COVID levels of January or February 2020, or even higher by March 21, so weakening to below pre-COVID levels again in the current fiscal as the pandemic impact worsened. The impact has been highest in large ticket discretionary purchases, such as airline travel and automotive purchases, which reverted back to levels as low as 13 to 38% of pre-COVID levels, given the highly negative impact on consumer purchasing power due to high medical spends, in addition to the restrictions and risk aversion. On the other hand, with manufacturing and essential activities continuing largely unfettered, certain sectors like road freight and diesel consumption saw lower impact, while electricity demand, rail and port freight traffic, etc., remained above pre-pandemic levels. In line with the weakening credit trends, the rating actions in ICRA's portfolio also saw similar trends. The credit ratio, which is the ratio of upgrades to downgrades, had seen significant weakening as the first wave of the pandemic struck. However, it improved sequentially as the year progressed, as the economic recovery gained pace and uncertainties were resolved. However, it has again reversed as the second wave impact intensified. We will now move to the next section, where we will showcase some of the recent consumption and industrial trends visible across the board, including the impact of the second wave on select sectors. Daily airline passenger traffic, which had been improving sequentially over the months, but was yet to reach even half of pre-COVID levels, again suffered a sharp setback on account of the spike in infections. As a result of increased risk aversion and restrictions following the same, the recovery trends in the industry have again reversed sharply, further prolonging recovery in the sector. International operations also, which were as it is limited to operations under the Vande Bharat mission and air bubble arrangements, were impacted further as countries imposed restrictions on travel to and from India and people avoided non-essential travel. The hotel segment too has seen similar trends. While there was sequential recovery visible in the sector from H2 FY21, this was again set back with the second wave of the pandemic. In addition to increased risk aversion towards public spaces and events, the restrictions on large gatherings also impacted MICE activities. The business traveler and leisure traveler segments were also set back by the rising infections and lockdowns, even as quarantine traffic offered some respite. Overall, recovery in the travel and hospitality segments has been significantly set back by the second wave of the pandemic and is expected to take much longer to revert to earlier levels. Slide 22 of the presentation outlines recent trends in the automotive sector. Across most of the subsegments, there has been sequential and year-on-year moderation visible in April and May 21, given the widespread restrictions. Additionally, unlike the previous year, where rural supported demand remained strong, this year, the percolation of cases into the hinterlands is likely to act as dampeners for rural-dependent sectors, such as tractors and motorcycles. Furthermore, while there is increasing preference for personal mobility in the wake of the pandemic, the pent-up demand getting satiated to an extent last year, and the significant erosion of purchasing power due to higher medical spend across families are likely to constrain the pace of recovery. The freight traffic movement across the country also saw some sequential weakening into April and May 21, given the weakened consumer sentiment and economic activity. The impact was least in the rail freight segment, given the essential nature of commodities transported, and in port freight as EXIM trade continued. In the road freight traffic also, while there was sequential weakening visible, the impact was much lower than that seen last year, when there had been a complete clampdown on manufacturing activity as well, and restrictions on non-essential goods movement, which was not there this time. These are likely to bounce back as the country opens up and remain in line with economic recovery trends. Similarly, the electricity demand and fuel consumption trends also reported some sequential weakening into April and May 21, but since the industrial activity continued largely unfettered, the sequential weakening was not as sharp as last year. In contrast to the sharp weakening visible in consumer-oriented sectors, the construction-oriented sectors remained relatively resilient. The sector has been relatively less impacted by the second wave in contrast to the first, when there had been a complete clampdown on construction activities. Despite the regional lockdowns, most states have permitted construction activities, especially outside urban clusters. Additionally, construction companies have been better prepared and have retained labor with accommodation and other such facilities, thereby preventing the mass labor migration issue that crippled the sector last year. Additionally, raw material availability is also not a major bottleneck this time around. Overall, with the increased capital outlay towards infrastructure activities envisaged in the budget 2021-22 and limited impact on construction activities in the second wave, construction and other allied sectors are likely to support the recovery momentum in this wave, despite some temporary setbacks, if any. Similarly, commodity-oriented sectors have also reported relatively encouraging trends, supported by firm prices and stable industrial demand. With the recovery underway in most global economies, the prices of commodities, including steel, have rallied over the past few months. Buoyed by the firm international as well as domestic demand and prices, steel producers have reported healthy improvement in profit margins as well, which is expected to continue into FY22. Many companies have also announced large capacity additions in order to capture a larger share of the growing pie. Within commodities, fuel prices also continue to remain elevated, with crude prices steadily elevating due to periodic cuts by OPEC nations, coupled with depreciation of rupee with respect to the dollar and superimposed with high taxes and excise duties. The domestic petrol and diesel prices have steadily increased to historic highs over the past few months. Operating margins in the sector also accordingly improved in FY21 on the back of GRM improvement, supported by healthy inventory gains as against inventory losses that were reported in FY20. Petrochemical margins have also been high due to robust demand, given increased demand for plastic-based products such as PPE kits, medical equipment, packaging material, etc. in the wake of the pandemic. To sum up, we leave you with the key takeaways from the presentation. While India Inc. continued to report healthy recovery into Q4 FY21, the momentum is expected to have been impacted in Q1 FY22 on account of the second wave. While the year-on-year growth in Q1 would be optically aided by the low base, it is likely to disappoint sequentially. The impact has been highest across consumer-oriented sectors, especially travel and hospitality, retail, auto, etc., while essential services, construction activity, etc., have seen relatively lower impact. Commodity-oriented sectors also remain relatively resilient, supported by firm prices and industrial demand. The credit outlook remains contingent on the evolving situation, with vaccination drive, government initiatives to boost economic recovery through investments, etc., remaining key. With this, we end our presentation and would be glad to take any questions. I'll hand back to Rohan for the Q&A session.
Thanks a lot, Shruti, for a detailed and insightful presentation. I'll request the participants to type out their queries in the Q&A box at the bottom, and then we'll take those queries as and when possible. So in the meanwhile, till the queue populates, what we'll do is we'll take certain queries that we have received from our subscribers offline. So we'll start with those queries. The first query that we received was that while the second wave has subsided and obviously lockdowns are being gradually relaxed, and now which sectors are expected to continue to remain under stress over the near to medium term, and basically sectors wherein the business recovery post-crisis would be more prolonged. So Ravi, if you could just take that up.
Yeah, so with regard to the stress sectors, airlines, hotels, restaurants, all tourism-related, allied sectors will be impacted, and the retail sector to a large extent, and along with that, shopping malls. So these are the most stress sectors, that we see. Multiplexes are also, deeply impacted. While recovery was being seen in some of the sectors, but with the onset of second wave, the recovery has been further been postponed. But at the same time, now we are beginning to see relaxation of lockdowns in different cities. At the same time, people are really cautious in coming out and reaching out these places. So while footfalls may appear to be improving, but nevertheless, we believe that in terms of earnings, it may not add much to the earnings of the companies in the next 1 quarter or so. So to the extent we believe, these sectors will continue to be impacted. But on the other hand, with regard to the agro based sectors, whether it is agro inputs or FMCG or two wheelers, so on and so forth. While this time the rural market has been impacted much more than the first wave, but nevertheless the impact is not going to be that negative. So we believe that the companies catering to agro sector we believe these entities will be able to make meaningful profits in the current financial year. As regards other sectors, companies which are catering to the export market, whether it is commodities, players, or for that matter, IT or pharmaceuticals, outlook will continue to be stable to positive depending on where they are present.
You touched upon commodities. Another question that we received was that the commodity cycle has obviously hardened quite a bit since H2 of previous fiscal. So what has been the impact of the same on the corporate India performance across sectors, and how do you see the same going forward?
With regard to the commodity price impact, it has been more obvious with regard to metals. So ICRA rates whole lot of steel companies. So we have seen record profit being generated by larger steel companies, especially which are integrated, who have access to their own iron ore and to some extent coking coal. So because of this excess cash generation, many of them have been able to deleverage. So today, their balance sheet and key credit metrics look, at a relatively healthy level compared to what we have seen 2 years back. And even if the margins were to correct to some extent in the current financial year, already there are talks of crackdown, being made in China against speculators, so on and so forth. While margins may not be sustainable at the recent levels, even if you assume certain level of correction, 25-30% from the peak level, still earnings will be quite sizable. That will enable these companies to further deleverage their balance sheet in the near term. So apart from steel, we also seen similar good performance with regard to aluminium, copper, zinc, lead, etc. But may not be to the extent of steel, but nevertheless, compared to the past averages, all these other metal companies have also done well. And as regards other commodities, oil is one commodity wherein after shortfall over the last fiscal, we have been seeing steady uptrend, and now we are talking about almost $75 per barrel. To that extent, it has given breathing space for the upstream oil companies. We believe earnings for these entities will be improving substantially. At the same time, companies who are using these commodities, various derivatives, whether it is tire companies or paint companies, petrochemicals, so on and so forth. While there could be some margin compression in the near term, but so long as there is economic recovery, we believe even these sectors will be able to pass on that to consumers and enjoy decent margins in the respective businesses.
Quite a delivery. Shamshay, I come over to you for the next query. So basically, the government of India has been laying a lot of emphasis on Atmanirbhar Bharat and has rolled out various incentive schemes such as PLI across sectors. So can you just briefly touch upon the benefits that corporate India is expected to get from such schemes?
Sure. I think that's a very good question, and I think the government's production-linked incentive plans are a step in the right direction, given the fact that they have an objective to meet, and that objective is to reduce import dependence in many sectors where we have been struggling to improve our cost competitiveness. To take some examples, I think we've already started seeing some green shoots and investments being planned by companies in sectors like pharmaceuticals, especially API manufacturers, where we've had high dependence on imported APIs, especially on China. That apart, we've already seen investments being made by consumer durable and electronic part manufacturers as well, particularly looking at backward integration of key components. Recently, as you would know, that the government of India has also started focusing very aggressively on the EV space. And as part of that, while initially they had focused through demand incentive through part of the FAME policy, but recently they have announced the PLI scheme, which is going to address the supply side concerns by manufacturing of the batteries. By and large, most of the PLI schemes are encouraging manufacturers to start investments, and these investments will be essentially offset by incentives, which will be provided in form of like 3 to 5% revenue contribution over the next foreseeable future. Our view is that while PLI schemes are addressing very specific areas of the economy and they will help us in improving cost competitiveness, but overall, to move the needle and to kickstart the capex cycle, they may not be adequate, because for that to happen, you have to see major investments coming in from sectors like steel, cement, and other major infrastructure projects. The good news is that with strong outlook for the steel sector, many of the players have also announced capacity expansion plans in steel as well. At present, I think we have close to about 142 million metric ton of capacity in India. And ICRA's own expectation is that those capacities will ramp up to about 180 million metric ton over the next 5 years. This, along with various ancillary sectors, which now are gaining traction because of the favorable export outlook, will also start, contributing to the investment momentum.
So Ravi, Shamsher touched upon the capex cycle, obviously reviving. When do you see the capex cycle reviving, and which sectors are expected to lead the recovery?
In the last decade, if you see, most of the capex was done in capital-intensive sectors like thermal power, steel, and refineries. But in the current cycle, thermal power generation, the capex has almost come to a standstill. But at the same time, the renewable energy capex is really going, growing at a good pace, especially on the solar side. While wind was also seeing some traction, but of late, wind is not growing at the pace of solar. But having said that, overall non-conventional energy capex has been growing, and with our targets, of energy generation to be achieved from this particular segment, we believe at least for the next 5 years, capex from non-conventional energy will remain buoyant. Apart from that, steel companies after almost a decade now, they are talking about setting up either greenfield steel plants or even going for brownfield expansion. Especially now with the improved balance sheets and the improved risk appetite, we believe steel capex could be revived the near term. So besides these two, in the oil and gas space, capex has been going along without much of a decline, because we are talking about very strong entities in this space. So irrespective of the fundamentals, they have been going ahead with the capex on the refining side and pipeline side, marketing side, so on and so forth. Related to that, even city gas distribution sector also has seen several licenses being given for new cities, wherein almost 1 lakh crore of capex is likely to be rolled out over the next 5 to 8 years. Apart from this space, other sectors wherein we could see minor capex would be with regard to chemicals and specialty chemicals, wherein because of increased outsourcing orders from multinational companies, the large entities in this space are going ahead with capex, and also the sugar companies of late, especially with this ethanol program being advanced. Already many sugar companies are in midst of expansion, and with the recent announcement, they're likely to further enhance their capacities on ethanol. So these are the sectors wherein we are going to see a good amount of capex, and to the extent they would also require debt funding. We need to see to what extent it would impact the individual companies in terms of credit metrics and credit profile.
Shekhar, I'll come over to you for the next query. So one is that obviously a sector which has probably been the most impacted on account of the pandemic is obviously travel and hospitality. So now that the lockdowns have been relaxed, what is the outlook of ICRA for these sectors, and what could be the expected timeline for performance to go back to pre-COVID levels?
Right. At a broad level, we see the recovery for the industry to be kind of pushed back by around 8 to 12 months, and the revenues, the pre-COVID level of revenues to kind of return only by kind of FY25. Just a near term, like for FY22, we expect the performance to be significantly weaker than our earlier estimates because of this second wave of pandemic. But the revenues are still likely to be better on a year-on-year basis because of the partial lockdowns or the curfews imposed, allowing the operations with some restrictions, as against a very strict pan-India lockdown last year. In fact, we see a lot of hotel chains across the country resorting to conversion of properties to COVID care centers. The quarantine business is kind of picking up. That said, the situation is still evolving compared to all other sectors. The scenario is still not looking great here. The fact that the slow current pace of vaccination or the efficacy of vaccines or a possibility of a third wave remain concerns. We expect the occupancy to kind of reach the pre-COVID levels by only FY24, and more importantly, the ARRs are expected to recover at a slower pace and reach that level only by FY25. So overall, we say that the industry revenues will go back to the pre-COVID levels by FY25. Having said that, on the financial performance, the entities will report an operating loss in FY22 as well, but it is still likely to be narrower than last year because of the benefits coming from the better operating leverage and also the sustenance in the fixed cost saving initiatives they took last year. With this reduction in the break-even levels, we expect the pre-COVID OPM still to be far away, like FY14, despite some delayed recovery in revenues. What we see as an interesting churn is the fact that a lot of companies have resorted to a good amount of equity fundraising from investors or promoters, and many entities in the hospitality sector have utilized the benefits given by the government. The government had extended this emergency credit line guarantee scheme initially from the earlier deadline of June 30, 21 to kind of now September 30, 21, or until the guarantee sum of 3 lakh crore, which fully until when it is fully exhausted. This apart, the upper existing limit of 500 crore debt outstanding as of Feb 2020 for this to be eligible, that has also been removed. They have also included aviation sector for it, for this part of ECLGS 2.0. So most of the people have resorted to this, one because of the fact that the operations are not great and it's providing some liquidity buffer, and more importantly, there is also an extension of tenor of these schemes from 4 years to now 5 years, and 100% guarantee cover is also available with a fairly lower rate of interest. So liquidity is kind of supporting the industry for now, but a recovery could take much longer. On your question on the supply addition in the industry earlier, for this sector, we see the supply addition will remain muted and will get pushed back by 12 to 18 months considering the current scenario. And we also see some of the projects which are in the initial stage of planning are kind of getting cancelled or deferred.
So Ravi, query for you. So in the first wave, we saw that the pent-up demand, there was a pent-up demand because obviously there was a supply side issues, and once the lockdowns were relaxed, there was a pent-up demand which helped the economy recover. Now, what we see this time is probably that there's a lot of demand impact that has been there, and the demand sentiments have been impacted. So what is your sense on the pent-up demand that we could see going forward now that the lockdowns have been relaxed? So is this pent-up demand going to be this time as well?
At least we believe that pent-up demand may not be robust unlike the first wave. That is because whatever had to be bought, people have already bought. Especially if we talk about electronic items, whether it is laptops, smartphones, and all the related gadgets, there was renewed buying of all these items in the first wave. Apart from that, people are buying many consumer goods in a panic way in the first wave. Whereas this time, it hasn't happened in a sudden way. It happened in a gradual manner to the extent the people had enough time to prepare for this second wave. That is one thing. And secondly, this time impact has been quite widespread at the society. So many people, have been impacted, whether directly or indirectly. So to the extent, fear psychosis is very high, and to the extent we believe discretionary consumption will take a backseat. People would want to save more rather than spend, even if they have some craving. So since there is a talk of third wave and also different variants of this virus, which would be impacting the region, so people would want to be cautious this time, unlike the first wave. To the extent, I would believe that the pent-up demand may not be anything to write home about the current year, I would think.
Okay. You mentioned about the third wave. So somebody is interested in obviously asking what would be the impact of the third wave on the economy, and do we envisage that impact to be substantial this time?
Obviously, that's an unknown. So it will be difficult to clearly forecast what could be the impact. Depending on the severity and length of the particular wave, we'll have to assess the situation. But we believe if you look at the really vulnerable sectors of the economy, the most of the SMEs they are just limping back to normalcy. Now, if in case there were to be third wave which could impact the businesses, that segment of the market will be deeply impacted. And certain borrowers, especially from the financial sector perspective, unsecured loans and so on and so forth, even MFI kind of borrowers, those vulnerable segments of the population, their repayment capabilities will certainly be impacted. So financial sector entities will be deep in stress, especially for catering to the bottom of the pyramid consumers. When it comes to manufacturing side, I expect deeper pain with regard to SMEs. Whereas when it comes to large companies, established companies, who are listed and who have been able to raise capital from the market, who have good liquidity, we don't expect much impact either in the business or in the credit profile. Many of them are well prepared to face any eventuality. In fact, ironically, we believe that these larger players have been able to consolidate their market share during this difficult period because the business has shifted from the unorganized segment to organized segment. So I would think it should be beneficial for the larger players, whereas outlook could be somewhat negative for the SMEs in this space.
Ravi, could you just give a brief outlook of demand for the textile sector? So how is the textile sector expected to perform?
See, textile sector, to a large extent, was dependent upon export, market. So with the simultaneous, hit in the export markets, many of the Indian companies got impacted. And even China-related business also dried up to some extent. So export-oriented companies were impacted in the first wave, but then gradually, as the market opened up, many of the businesses, especially the offshoring kind of business, revived. So today, when we talk about retail-oriented, exporters, they are coming back to normalcy. But textile companies who are focused in the Indian market, who have their own retail outlets, either through their own outlet or through franchisees, those kind of entities have been impacted because there is no traction with regard to the business. People are wary of going to these outlets to purchase various garments. So outlook for Indian entities who are focusing through brick and mortar retail outlets is somewhat subdued, and to the extent outlook has turned negative, I would think, over the last 1 quarter or so. While it appeared like things were reviving in February and March, but especially in April, May, even June also, we see that sales have plummeted, for these players, and we need to see how quickly they're able to get back to normalcy. But one good thing is that many of these textile companies have the benefit of funding through this ECLGS scheme. So many of them have bolstered the liquidity position, which will give them some breathing space. Some of them also gone for a one-time restructuring scheme earlier. So at least the bigger ones will be able to ride through this period, whereas smaller companies would require perhaps one more round of restructuring or additional funding lines to stay clear of this period.
Shamsher, if you could take this up. So on the automotive sector, last year we saw different growth trends across various sectors, while obviously commercial vehicles, because of the economic outlook, was a underperformer. But some sectors like PV as well as tractors were obviously robust. So what is your view on how these sectors are expected to perform this time around?
Okay. So our view here is actually emanating from the fact that this time around we expect a relatively sober demand environment from the rural areas, simply because of the impact of pandemic being around. Now, and if we talk about that, we expect that the two-wheeler segment will see the most impact. Unlike our previous assumptions, where we were expecting the segment to grow between 16 to 18% in volume terms, we have revised our forecast down to about 10 to 12% growth for this year. Now, the reason are threefold. One, the impact of economic disruption thanks to second wave has been at the lower end of the spectrum in terms of job losses and salary cuts, etc. These are typically the buyers for two wheelers. Secondly, the impact of rural. As per our estimates, nearly 45 to 50% of total two wheeler demand in India emanates from rural areas, including tier 3 and tier 4 towns. So, to that extent, we expect relatively muted demand. And third, because this will be a second year where schools, colleges, and universities are going to remain closed, and a good part of the demand incrementally from first-time user comes from college and university going students. To that extent, also we feel that two-wheelers will remain mostly impacted. In addition, I think the increasing vehicle prices because of technology changes and inflation have also had an impact on the vehicle prices, which typically get passed on and has an impact on the consumer sentiments. Now, as regards to the passenger vehicle segment, I feel that, or rather, ICRA feels that the growth will be relatively better compared to two-wheelers, but it will still be short of what we were expecting earlier. So here, the outlook is about 17 to 20%. Optically, these numbers look very good, and that is simply because of the low base, as quarter one of fiscal 21 was a complete washout. One caveat I would like to add here is that while we are expecting these growth numbers to actually pan out for this year, a lot of things will depend upon how soon the economic activity revives, and to some extent, the auto sector is also struggling with supply shortages on the semiconductor front. Now, if those shortages continue or get prolonged, then we may have to revise our forecast downwards simply because of supply side concerns. On the commercial vehicle front, we expect about 21 to 24% growth. Now, here again, it is the low base effect which is going to drive growth. And as you would know that for the last 2 years, the medium and heavy commercial vehicle segment has actually come down by 60% in total volumes. We expect, having gone through 2 years of down cycle, the sector is going to see replacement demand. That, coupled with government's continued thrust towards infrastructure and construction activities, which are visible even during this lockdown period, will continue to support demand for new commercial vehicles. What remains a concern on the CV side is the sharp increase in delinquencies for the retail and the first-time buyer segment, which has made the lenders quite cautious in overall lending to the segment. Now, coming to tractors, this was one sector which actually stood out last year with 27% growth, and the industry actually saw peak volumes, all-time high volumes of 9 lakh units. Now, given the high base effect, we expect some moderation to definitely creep in this year in the tractor segment. But if we talk about the underlying economic indicators for the rural cash flows, those continue to remain fairly supportive even this time around.
So a query here is that now if China moves to consumption oriented rather than exports, and as and when the global economies start looking at India as an export hub, so how is corporate India placed to take advantage of these export opportunities?
This COVID has really benefited the Indian exporters. Because many of the multinational companies who were largely relying on China as the sourcing base, they realized that it's a risky strategy. So to the extent they have been diversifying their supply sources. So Indian companies have benefited to a large extent, whether it is in textile space or chemicals, specialty chemicals, and so forth. Many Indian companies have got orders over the last 1 year, and I believe these kind of orders will be acquiring further momentum over the near to medium term. That apart, even in the other sectors of the economy, especially steel exports, US demand is going to balloon over the next 3 to 5 years, because US is going to have a huge amount of fiscal stimulus through investments in the infrastructure space. With China, relatively going slow in exports, Indian steel exporters will be benefited a big extent. To the extent that will give them additional market. Traditionally, if you see, steel exports were not that robust from India. Only over the last 1 to 2 years, we have been seeing big change over here. And in case the US market were to revive through this fiscal stimulus, Indian steel exports can further increase, which will help out all the Indian steel companies who are already sitting on a good amount of surplus capacity, who are also looking at additional capacity over here.
A question linked to this, Ravi. So obviously, Shruti touched upon in the presentation that because of the various high frequency indicators show that obviously state lockdowns had a big impact on domestic demand per se. But how was EXIM trade and any disruptions on port operations per se? So how was EXIM trade during these times?
See, EXIM, if you look at the cargo, volumes of major ports, whether it is major ports or non-major ports, the current financial year, if you see, of course, there has been impact, but at the same time, there has not been a material impact, especially on the export side. Things were really going strong, especially as I mentioned, steel exports have been robust, and even other exports through containers have also been fairly healthy. And to the extent, while oil demand went down because of petroleum products demand going down, net, the negative growth rate in the cargo side has not been that material. So if you go by the declared cargo volumes of some of the major ports, we believe that the impact has been largely inconsequential.
Sure. A question pertaining to credit growth. So when can we expect credit growth to revert to say 5-6% or some moderate levels? And in terms of if we break it down into agri, retail, services as well as industry, so across these various segments, when can we expect credit growth to revert to these levels?
Perhaps we have to wait for 1 more year. This year will be a kind of a consolidation year, while many financial sector entities, especially banks, they've been trying to shift their focus from wholesale exposure to retail exposures. But at the same time, outlook for the retail market is not that sanguine. We just discussed about the outlook for the MFIs and unsecured borrowers. So given the weak outlook for this market, I'm not too sure if some of those NBFCs, MFIs will be too enthused to increase their book size in aggressive manner. I'm sure they would want to they want to be very careful before expanding their book. That is on the retail side. But when it comes to the wholesale exposures, the demand for expansion projects and all that continues to be tepid. Most of the incremental requirements are coming from this renewable energy, especially solar and wind, and to some extent on the road space, a lot of projects are getting awarded. So many of these entities are going for financial closure, whether for fund-based limits, non-fund-based limits, and so on and so forth. Whereas big ticket announcements have not been made. While companies are talking about that, perhaps it would happen by the fag end of the year. But then when it comes to actual sanction and disbursements, perhaps it will slip into the next financial year. So I would think for the whole of this financial year, perhaps we'll be in the low single-digit growth, and only in financial year 2022-23 we might see material revival in credit growth, whether it is on the retail side or on the wholesale side.
Sure. There are no remaining Q&A as such. So should we close or should we wait for a couple of minutes?
I think we can close, Rohan.
Yeah. So thanks a lot all for attending this webinar. I hope that this was informative and helpful to you. So if you have any further queries, then please feel free to get in touch with us, and we'll be more than willing to answer your queries. So thanks a lot for attending the presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.